Good evening. Well, a few things that I want to talk about this evening will go hand in hand with our lesson tonight as we think about the privilege of being adopted and what a privilege that is. We'll get into that a little bit towards the end of the devotional. My question for you tonight as we begin is, do you show joy in your service to the Lord? And as we think about, we have a meeting coming up here in about 2 months, and hopefully we're all getting ready to talk to neighbors and friends and maybe strangers on the street and invite them to come to our meeting and try to share the gospel with them. Hopefully we're getting ready to do that. And some of the things we're going to talk about tonight will maybe play a part in the results that we get when we do invite someone. This is kind of a rhetorical question, but what type of people do you like to spend time with? When you think about the people in this world, there's all kinds, and it takes all kinds to make things work. But what type of people do you like to spend time with? Are you drawn to people who are just positive about life in general? You know, they enjoy life. All of us go through bad situations, but some people have a knack for making the best of bad situations, and they can still be joyful in whatever situation they may find themselves in. And in general, they're just happy. Or do you prefer to spend time with people who are depressed about life, have a negative thought about no matter what goes their way, they can find something wrong with it, even the good things. They can find fault in everything. And they're just generally unhappy. Those people aren't too pleasant to be around. And like I said, it's a rhetorical question because I think I know what most of you are going to say, or all of you. You like to be around people that are happy, that help bring you up. None of us like to be around someone day after day that just brings us down. And it does have that effect when we surround ourselves with people like that. So does this negativity in someone's life encourage us to want to be like them or to live like them? Well, obviously not. So my question for you this evening is, as a Christian, what impression are you leaving on others around you? Friends, neighbors, co-workers, strangers that we meet? Do they look at you and ask themselves, what do they have going on? What's so good in their life? In Proverbs 17, and I've just got a few verses I want to read here. Proverbs is one of my favorite books because you can turn to just about any page in that book and find something that will help you with your day today. Proverbs 17 and 22 says, "A merry heart does good like medicine, but a broken spirit dries the bones." And back in Proverbs 12, verse 25, "Anxiety in the heart of man causes depression, but a good word makes it glad." And then back a page or so, Proverbs 15, verses 13 and 15. "A merry heart makes a cheerful countenance, but by sorrow of the heart the spirit is broken." Verse 15, "All the days of the afflicted are evil, but he who is of a merry heart has a continual feast." Just a few verses, and there's many more that we can look at in Proverbs that talk about our attitude, our way of being, just in our day-to-day lives, and the effect that will have on us, the effect that will have on others as well. The attitude that we have will affect those who are around us. The way that we carry ourselves in one way or another, whether for good or for evil, either we'll lift them up with the way we live our life, or we'll bring them down in our sorrow. We'll have the effect of either making them want to be more like us and want to have what we have, or want nothing to do with what we have and who we are. And as Christians, we have the greatest gift available. We have God's grace, something we probably don't spend enough time studying on and talking about. But that's a pretty precious gift. We have salvation. We have peace in our hearts, even in this life. Even when we're going through struggles and trials, we can have peace in this life because we know this is not the end. There's something greater. So we have the greatest gift, even on this earth. We have the ability to offer this gift to others. If you will, turn back with me to Philippians chapter 4. Philippians 4 and verse 4 says, "Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say rejoice." In 1 Thessalonians 5 and 16, it just says, "Rejoice always." Not just in good times. Rejoice always. This speaking to those who have that hope. Romans 12 and verse 12. Romans 12 and verse 12, "Rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, continuing steadfastly in prayer." A couple things we can notice from this verse. When he says rejoicing in hope, doesn't mean only in good times, and that only good will come to us. He goes on to talk about tribulation will come. In this life, there will be tribulation. Sometimes it seems like in the society we live in, tribulation will come upon us because we are living as Christians. Now, we're not persecuted anywhere near like they were in the early church. We don't face the physical persecution that they did. But yet, when we try to stand up for truth in our society, sometimes we face some verbal persecution. There will be tribulation that comes in our lives. But what's he say? He says, be patient and pray. Those things will pass. Everything in this life will pass, whether good or bad. But continue to rejoice in hope. Not rejoice necessarily in the bad thing that's going on, the tribulation. Maybe don't even necessarily rejoice in the things of this life. And surely we're joyful when good things happen to us. That's not the rejoice he's talking about. He's talking about rejoice in the hope that you have that this world isn't it. This isn't the end. And this is where it kind of touches on what we talked about tonight with the privilege that it is to be adopted. We need to make sure that we as Christians understand that hope. Truly understand that hope. In Ephesians chapter 1, in verse 18. Paul's praying here in Ephesians chapter 1 for the church there in Ephesus. In Ephesians 1 and verse 18, he says, "The eyes of your understanding being enlightened, that you may know what is the hope of his calling. What are the riches of the glory of his inheritance in the saints?" Paul prays that they have an understanding of that hope. We need to make sure we have an understanding of that hope. If we want to live that joyful life, if we want to be that example, that we might have an opportunity to enlighten someone else, we really have to understand that hope. If we don't understand the hope we have, we can easily be pulled down by the cares of this life. And it's going to be pretty difficult if we don't understand that hope and we're not joyful about our service to God. What are the chances that we're going to encourage someone else to want what we have? If the cares of this life can so easily bring us down and the hope that we have of the life after this can't cover that up, who would want to be like us? And yes, we are to be sober-minded as Christians. And perhaps sometimes in an effort to avoid being lumped in with some of the evangelical religions of the world today, we maintain a very reserved and quiet attitude. Maybe we're too quiet about our hope. Maybe we're so reserved and quiet sometimes about our hope that they don't even see the joy in our life about serving God. First Peter chapter 4. As we bring our thoughts to a close shortly, we think about the hope that we have in this life and the joy that we should have because of that hope. 1 Peter chapter 4, verses 12 and 13. Beloved, do not think it strange concerning the fiery trial which is to try you, as though some strange thing happened to you, but rejoice to the extent that you partake of Christ's sufferings, that when His glory is revealed, you may also be glad with exceeding joy. Are we so glad about the hope that we have that we can let that show to others around us, even when we're facing tribulation and trials in this life? Are we making others ask themselves, what does he have and how do I get it? That's how we should be living our life. That would make our jobs as evangelists so much easier if they see joy in our life and because of that hope. If they don't see it, we'll have a difficult time convincing them that they should want what we have. As we leave Peter here, the last verse I'd like us to look at. If you will recall the account of Peter when he wanted to walk on water. And we know the story of Peter and how he's pretty vocal about what he thought. Sometimes spoke up when he shouldn't, but his boldness was a tribute to him. But Peter was in the boat. They saw Jesus walking on the water. In Matthew chapter 14, starting in verse 28, and Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water. So he said to him, Come. And when Peter had come down out of the boat, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw the wind was boisterous, and he was afraid and began to sink, and he cried out, saying, Lord, save me. When we truly understand the hope that we have, this is the attitude that we will have. When we truly understand that we need Him, we will cry out, Lord, save me. And understanding that, this could go into a Sunday morning lesson easily in talking about our need to fully understand our need for Him, our need for His grace, our need for that hope, to get through the trials and tribulations of this life. But it's so important that we have that as we try to teach others, as we try to encourage others to be Christians, that they see that joy in us, that they see that hope in us. So if you would have any needs this evening, whatever they may be, please make them known as we stand and sing.